Welcome back, our dear viewers, and welcome to this special edition of our program Africa Today, where we are going to shed light about the most important economic achievements that took place in the African continent in the year 2020. But first, we'll start with this report where Egypt's Ministry of Planning and Economic Development has actively participated in the launch of the Perception of Poverty in Africa for the year 2020. More details with Abir Mitwali in the following story.
Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, represented by Dr. Sherif Ashrif, Executive Director of the National Institute for Governance and Sustainable Development, has actively participated in the launch of the Perception of Poverty in Africa for the year 2020. Dr. Sherif said in her speech on behalf of Planning Minister Hala Saeed that according to the report and the Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index 2020, there are millions of Africans suffering from hunger, lack of electricity, and insecurity. Sherif added that more than 600 million Africans face electricity problems by lighting their homes with kerosene and candles, noting that more than 60% of young people were unemployed in 2019, while 60% of children are more affected, adding that according to the report, the issue is not limited to high levels of poverty. Among the younger groups, the severity of poverty is even more acute, following that young Africans today, more than ever before, need a government that provides solutions that enhance livelihoods and focuses on enhancing opportunities and wealth for its citizens. Sherif added that today, as Africans, it is necessary to look at the challenges facing development internally and not focus on prosperity of each country alone, noting that fighting poverty is a challenge facing the entire African continent. Sherif affirmed the belief of the Egyptian state that the integration of Africa is what makes it able to withstand, which creates the basis for flourishing resistance, adding that regional integration of Africa creates more wealth for its citizens. He stressed the need for the union of all countries of the continent to achieve this goal.
And from South Africa to Nigeria, from Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, the number of new coronavirus infections is on the rise in many parts of the African continent. More details follow.
From South Africa to Nigeria, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the number of new coronavirus infections is on the rise in many parts of Africa. The continent has recorded more than 2.5 million cases since the pandemic began, with some 59,770 deaths. Special health advisor to the group of 8 developing countries known as D8, which includes Nigeria, said that the second wave has arrived. He added that he's concerned about that and people are going about their business as usual, going to weddings, events, church and mosque. They shake hands and don't wear masks, and there is no social distancing. Health authorities in 47 African countries have registered an average of 73,000 new COVID-19 infections per week since the end of November, compared to an average of 30,000 new weekly cases in October. The number of daily infections in Rwanda are on the rise, even though bars and nightclubs have been closed since March. In Kenya, cases started increasing again in October. The government has extended the nationwide curfew until January 3rd, and schools are largely closed until 2021. South Africa also appears to have been hit by the second wave and now accounts for more than a third of coronavirus cases reported across the African continent. At its peak in July, South Africa was reporting nearly 14,000 new cases per day. This declined by October to around 1,000 new daily cases. Now, however, the number of new daily infections has soared back up to 9,500. South Africa's health minister said COVID-19 positivity rate, the proportion of tests that come back positive, had risen to 21%. This is much higher than the ideal rate of 10%.
In Africa, hope also rests on newly developed vaccines that have already been approved in several parts of the world, including the United States, as well as the European Union. More details in the following story.
In Africa, hope also rests on newly developed vaccines that have already been approved in several parts of the world, including the United States and European Union. Nigeria's health minister has said that the country expects to receive its first COVID-19 vaccine shipment in January, although he added that it wasn't yet certain which vaccine this would be. The government had earlier announced Nigeria would receive 20 million vaccine doses. Kenya has also ordered 24 million vaccine doses through the COVAX initiative, which aims to ensure that all countries worldwide has equal access to the coronavirus vaccine. Experts believe it will be months before vaccines are widely available across the continent. Head of the Africa Center for Disease Control said at a recent press conference that mass vaccination will not begin in Africa until mid-2021. This makes it all the more important to fight the second wave with all available means. He advised to wear a mask, keep your distance, keep your social life outdoors as much as possible. But he said messages asking people to change their behavior aren't strong enough anymore. Maybe now you have to show the consequences. You had a party here and now grandpa is dead. He said that maybe now you have to show the consequences. You had a party here and now grandpa is dead. He urged everyone to take responsibility for themselves and their families to lower the curve of infections a second time.
And welcome back. Now it's time to shed light about the most important achievements in Africa in 2020. To shed more light on that, we are very much delighted to have with us over the phone Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Ambassador Bayoumi, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, and how are you?
How are you, sir? Ambassador Bayoumi, first let's talk in general about the economic development that Africa had witnessed in 2020. And we have to mention here that unfortunately it was overshadowed by the repercussions of COVID-19.
As a matter of fact, we were a little bit lucky during the presidency of Egypt and the chairmanship of our president to the African Union. We tried a lot in order to make the situation much better.
Yes.
Africa is a very poor continent. It is the poorest continent. Meanwhile, Africa is sending a flow of money to the developed countries much more than it receives from them.
Yes.
To pay its debts, to pay its invoice of imports, much more than it receives as the revenue of exports or any sort of investment in the continent.
Yes.
Here, Egypt tried, and I think we are making step-by-step success to ask the investors in Europe, in the States, in China, in Japan, to come and invest in Africa with the Egyptian experience, which is much recognized and much more cheaper.
Yes.
And I think we are on the track now. Africa is really suffering from this situation. Meanwhile, we have a sort of a domination of the developed countries and its companies.
Yes.
They are in control of all what Africa is producing. To make this easier to our witness, when I was in Africa, I tried to import directly timber to Egypt or copper or whatever Africa is exporting.
Yes.
No, you can't. You have to get the African timber through Europe because it is dominated by European companies.
Yes.
This is unfair. This is unfair. Although it is cheaper, you can get it easier if you get it directly.
Yes.
But if you get it from Europe and the branches of Europe, of course, you are going to pay double. So the term of reference, the term of trade in Africa is not fair at all. And we have to explore more and more efforts in order to make the situation much fair.
Yes.
And what we said always, we need what we call fair trade and not fair aid.
Yes.
Aid, not trade, is the solution for what we are facing in Africa. But I think we are on the track now. I think everything is quite clear on the negotiation table, and hope that we continue like that. But it needs that we be there all the time. We be frank. African cooperation must be always a priority for all the African countries.
Indeed. Sir, do you agree that the surplus of workers, more stability, and the technology are actually transforming Africa's economies, making it actually less dependent on the extractive industries? Yes, Ambassador Bayoumi, can you hear me? Hello, sir. Ambassador Bayoumi. As of course we are trying to call again Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, we are shedding light here about the most important developments and achievements that happened in the economy of Africa during the year 2020. Although of course the whole world is suffering from the repercussions of COVID-19, which had of course great impact, maybe a very negative impact on the world economy. And again, with our Ambassador Bayoumi. Ambassador Bayoumi, do you agree that the surplus of workers and more stability and technology are transforming the African economies in the coming stage?
I hope so. I hope so. As I said before, we are on the right track.
Yes.
But we are still slow, and we have to accelerate our efforts.
Yes.
It's unfair, the situation in Africa. Africa was drained by the developed countries occupying Africa. So we are on the track, but we have to continue our efforts because this situation is unfair.
Ambassador Bayoumi, do you agree that Africa is promising a market for Egypt in the current period, while the Egyptian market is a window for Europe to access the African market as well?
Yes, I agree, and I have a small bit of news, good news for you.
Yes.
Because when we joined the COMESA, the Common Market of East and South Africa, we joined it almost 10 years ago.
Yes.
Our trade with Africa is tripled.
Yes.
And it makes a surplus for the sake of Egypt.
Yes.
This is good news.
Indeed.
Much better news that now, instead of the COMESA, which is 21 countries, now we are going to join all the African countries in one big free trade area, one large free trade area of 51 countries, 1,200 million inhabitants.
Yes.
If we succeed to do that, and I think we already legally started it, we shall be in a very good position.
Hope so, yes.
Mind you that Africa is not that rich, but it is, after all, a very good market for all of us. If we exchange what we need with Africa and what Africa needs from us, this will be a very good deal for both of Egypt and Africa.
Yes. Sir, also the trade and industry sector is one of the key supportive sectors of the Egyptian economy. How can we actually also depend on our cooperation with Africa to develop these sectors in our economy as well as a pillar in the African continent?
The most important and ready sector is agriculture.
Yes.
There are huge areas of land in Africa which is not used. I was ambassador in one African country, and I told them, you are not using even half of your land.
Yes.
Let us use it. They asked an innocent question, why?
Yes.
I said, we need whatever you can produce of agriculture products.
Yes.
The Arab world have what we call a food gap, which must be fulfilled either from Sudan, Nigeria, Ethiopia even, or Cameroon. Most of the African countries are not using all their lands, and we can help there. And I have a small experience in this field. I asked our Ministry of Agriculture to send a very good delegation of Egyptian experts. And I know quite well since decades that we have the good opportunity in order to explore this possibility of enlarging our investment in agriculture in Africa.
Ambassador
But
Gamal,
mind you,
Yes,
sorry
please.
to hear that
Yes.
This is not very good for the European taste or
Yes.
the American taste.
Yes.
Because both of them, they have surplus of agriculture goods and they don't want us to produce more agriculture products and
Yes.
to compete with them. This is the secret behind it.
Yes, indeed. Always a pleasure to listen to your very precious input, Mr. Ambassador. Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you very much for your input, and Happy New Year in advance, our TV viewers. That would bring us to the end of this edition of Africa Today. Till tomorrow with another quiz. Goodbye.